Now it is a big moment because we are going to use everything we created, all the infrastructure that we created here that are not being used, like the execute block, the dispatches, all this stuff is not being used yet. So now is moment to change our code, the code that we are using here. We will change it to actually create a block and then dispatch to execute this block in our runtime. So instead of doing all this code here, we are going to execute the block. So this is the example of how to create a block. I'm going to copy and paste this code and just see if everything is okay in this transfer. So basically, we have here a block. Okay, block. What is the number of the block? Block number 1, because it's the first block that we are creating. And what are the calls? So basically the calls are a string 6, and we are calling from Alice. So Alice is transferring something, and is transferring from Alice to Bob, and it's transferring 69. So let's just put this here because this is just set up. And then we created the block, and then this is what we are doing. We are transferring 30 from Alice to Bob, and we are transferring 20 from Alice to Charlie. So let's do the same. Let's create two extrinsics here. Let's something from Alice to Bob and something from Alice to actually let's use Charlie here, and then from Alice to Bob. Of course, it's the wrong type because we are using different types. So let's put Alice here, and then let's use Alice here as well. Let's add Bob over here and Charlie over there. Okay. I need to clone Alice because it's like transferring ownership. And then I just do runtime, and this is the magic, execute block 1. And then I'm going to unwrap here just if panic. If something goes wrong, I want to expect, I will just print panic or wrong block or something like that. It will skip the block. It won't panic. It will just skip the block and wrong block execution. And then I don't need to do all this stuff down here because they are not needed anymore. And then in the end, I will print my blockchain state. So remember, this was the last state. And if I didn't do anything wrong, if I run here, it will compile and it will execute. Now the amount is different. Okay. Oh, see, there's an insufficient balance because, of course, I'm transferring 69 and then I'm transferring. So the second, look how interesting it is. The second transfer didn't went through, but the first one and this is fine. Okay, so let's do it differently just to do exactly what we were doing before, 20 and 30. So when I run it, we have Alice with 50 and Bob with 30 and Charlie with. So very powerful now because we just build blocks, and these are the structure. These are the structures that we are going to send to our dispatch, and it's pretty simple. We don't need to manage increment block, check nows, increment nows. And if you look at the palette, you're going to see that Alice nows is 2 because it executed 2 transactions here, one here and one here. And Bob and Charlie nows didn't change because they didn't execute anything in the blockchain. And the block number is number 2. We could, like, for example, imagine that I want to execute a copy of this block. So let's just give you an example. I'm going to clone this block and execute it again. Oh, it's not okay. We don't have it implemented. Okay, so let's just copy and paste this just for the sake of exercise. Then we remove it right now because we don't have this clone implementation. We need to clone Alice here as well. Okay, and then we need to clone Bob as well. No problem. and then we need to clone Charlie as well. Okay, and then we have 2 blocks, and we can execute block 1, and then we can execute block 2, and if we run it, it will run. Block mismatch, because the number, look how interesting it is. The second block can't be block number 1 because it needs to be block number 2, of course. So let's change the block number and then run it again. So our blockchain is working. Unfortunately, now Alice doesn't have anything because she gave everything to Bob and Charlie, but we can create another transaction. Eventually we can say, okay, Bob, send it 30 back to Alice. Okay, that's okay, I'm gonna send you back, and then the transaction, the Bob nonce is now incremented. So you can see how easy it is to interact with the blockchain right now that we created all this infrastructure. So now it's just a matter of creating extrinsics, which will be like similar to API calls to the blockchain, external calls, remote procedure calls, or whatever you name it. And now we have a very functional system that has only this way of calling internals, so you don't have to interact with the internals of the blockchains. Of course, there's a lot of code that we need to still write in the next lessons, but as you can see, we already created the basic infrastructure for blocks and header and extrinsics, and this is very powerful for creating a new blockchain.